Hi there. I was asked some time ago about the dummy action within the automated strategy facility within Fairbot. And to be perfectly honest, it's not something I've used. Indeed, I didn't even realize it was there initially. And I guess it's only there for testing purposes more than anything else. However, I was thinking about something the other day, which you may be interested in, although I haven't said this is more of an intellectual exercise than anything else. But let me just briefly describe the dummy option. As you can see here, it doesn't do anything in terms of interaction with the market. But you can specify a start time like any other rule, you can specify conditions and so on. But I'll get back to that shortly. What I've done by way of explanation is to set up this strategy here, and I've populated it with one rule. Now what I was thinking is, using the dummy option may be beneficial in order to simplify the creation of a strategy, or indeed the understanding of what the strategy is doing. It may lead on to something else, which I'll come to shortly. But first of all, let me just run through what this is doing. As you can see, it's light blue, so that means this rule is applied to every single runner in the market the strategy is assigned to. Very briefly, what it's doing is it's going to lay every single runner after 5 seconds when the match or the race goes in play. It'll use a liability of £10, 20 ticks below the SP, and it's based on these 6 conditions. The favourite has to be bigger than 3, your current P&L for the horse racing markets in the win section anyway must be greater than minus 100. In other words, if you've lost more than £100, it won't fire in. The volume for the market must be greater than 50,000. The number of selections can be no greater than 25. The distance has to be less than 1.5 miles, and the number of non-runners should be equal to 0. Now, as you will probably remember from last time we looked at using the apply to all facility, this, although it looks like just one rule, it is one rule, but it will be applied to every single runner. So if I just minimize that out of the way just now, you'll see we're looking at the 5:15 at York today, where there is 20 runners. So if we assign this strategy, you'll see that Fairbot creates an individual rule for every single runner in the field, and each of those rules has to match these conditions before it will fire in. Now obviously those conditions are exactly the same for every runner. Now the question is, does Fairbot check those separately for every runner? In other words, does it have to check these 20 times given the number of runners in the market? Now this is pure conjecture on my part because I don't know the inner workings of Fairbot. But if it has to do that, that's a very inefficient way of doing it. So what I'm about to show you is what should be a more efficient way for Fairbot to handle it. Whether you as the user sees any difference is, again, open to debate. But this gets actually worse if I was to take this rule and copy it. Sorry, I went and clicked on the wrong command here. Hang on. Copy it and paste that in just to duplicate it. So imagine that we wanted further lays to go in at 30 ticks below. I won't bother editing that just to save time, but we can just go in here and put 30 ticks. It'll have all exactly the same conditions required. So then that all goes in. So now, if we save that, this race will have 40 separate rules, all checking the same set of conditions. Now that must create an extra load on Fairbot. Again, pure conjecture on my part. So there is something else you can do to perhaps tidy that up. So let me just reset that just now. We'll go back to the strategy editor. And what I'll do is I can just paste that back in, can't I? Yeah. Right, so I've created another one. What I'm going to do is move that up I'm just doing this so I can quickly edit all these conditions without me having to specify them individually. So when I edit this rule, we'll change the name to check conditions. Now that's going to fire 5 seconds after the event turns in play. It only needs to fire once. Click on action, and what we're going to do is use the dummy. So there's nothing to be done, but it needs these conditions to be set. Okay. Now, I didn't expect this warning, but now I understand I need to switch the apply to all on off for this rule. So I hope you had time to read that message. Let me just edit that again. I wasn't anticipating that option. So let me just remove that. That's not required. Let's make sure it's not anywhere else. It shouldn't be anywhere else in here. Sorry, I should have anticipated that one. Right, so you'll see if I click away from there, this one's now yellow. So it's not an apply to all option. Okay, so what we need to do now is come in here and edit this rule so that we get rid of all these conditions. So we can just remove each of those. And the only one we want is the rule number of executions. Check to see if check conditions is equal to 0. Actually, it needs to be equal to 1 or greater than 0. Right? So in other words, it needs the check conditions option to have fired, and it will only fire if those 6 conditions are met. And we can do the same on this one. Just remove all those. Add in the rule number of executions. Choose check conditions. Set that to equal to 1, and then OK. So what should happen now, and you may actually want, it's probably best to change the start time of those, just delay it a few seconds, just to give the check conditions option time to fire. Okay, so what will happen is now, after 5 seconds, this check conditions will go in and fire if all of those conditions are met. If they're not met, check conditions won't fire, which means it hasn't been executed one time, so these rules won't fire either. Now what will happen is, if we save this, minimize that and assign it to the race, we get the one condition, checking conditions, which contains all of the main criteria, and those criteria are only checked once. All the other ones simply rely on whether this one has fired or not. And that's it. As I say, I honestly don't know if that will make any difference to efficiency within Fairbot, and I haven't had the opportunity to apply it to any existing strategies I've created to test to see if it does make any difference. But I just thought it would be an interesting exercise to check out. Anyway, hope you found that interesting. Cheers.